All right, and we're recording. Welcome. Welcome everybody to the 2024 Northeast Ohio Pollinator Society Winter Series. It's a mouthful. We haven't shortened the name yet, and we won't, I promise. Um, Tonight is our first webinar out of 5. This is a special series. This is our 5th year. We started it in 2020 due to the pandemic, and Master Gardeners, Ashtabula County Master Gardeners, Ashtabula County Beekeepers Association, Ashtabula County Extension, and Ashtabula County Soil and Water got together. They wanted to put together a pollinator event, and pandemic happened. Decided let's try it virtually. And at first, we were kind of hesitant. I don't know if this virtual thing will work out or not. Put together 5 webinars and got a ton of interaction, a ton of people attending them, very interested in the topics that we presented, and the rest is history. So this is the 5th year anniversary. Very grateful for all of you that attend these webinars, and we're happy to put them on. We continue to do so. We actually did add the in-person event 2 years ago, and we have another one planned. If you go to the website this June in Pontiac, Ohio, again, we have a great speakers lined up, great vendors, native plant vendors. It's a great time. Check it out if you're interested. There'll be more on that future webinars, but it is 7, so we want to keep rolling and get this party started. Before we get too far, some Zoom tips. There are 2 options for you to interact with us. This is a webinar on Zoom, so you are unable to see, or we're unable to see you, and we're unable to hear you. You can see and hear us, but we can't see and hear you. So the only way for you to interact with us is by using the Q&A box and the chat box. So down at the bottom of your screen, for most people, if you're using an iPad or some sort of mobile device, it might be on the top. There should be a Q&A box and then a little box that says chat. The chat box is used for sharing information, like we were sharing where we were listening from and that sort of thing. So if one of the speakers asks a question, you can put your answer there. If you want to, um, make a comment about something that the speaker said, throw it in there. But specifically, if you have questions that you want us to look at the end and possibly have the speakers cover at the end of the presentation, anytime during the presentation, write them down in the Q&A box, hit enter, and then that message will send and we will be able to take a look at the end. We'll do an hour presentation, a couple minutes of questions, just like usual. And as always, this will be recorded. Quick advertisement for next webinar in 2 weeks from now on January 24th is we're going to be talking about woodland pollinators with Marnie Titchell. She is an Ohio State University extension wildlife. Oops, went a little bit too far. Wildlife program director. She has a lot of great knowledge and is a great speaker. So you're not going to want to miss that. It's in 2 weeks. If you're here listening to this, you're already signed up for the next 4. You don't have to do a thing. It'll come to your email. You click the link just like you did tonight. All right, moving right along here. As always, these presentations are recorded. They will be available on our website, go.osu.edu/NEOPS. That is your one-stop shop for all things Northeast Ohio Pollinator Society. If you want to donate, if you want to sign up to become a member, if you want to watch our webinars, if you want to attend the in-person festival, anything, all of the above, join the email list. That is the website, and more than likely you were clicked on it to get registered for tonight, so you know where it's at. It's in the email that you sent, and it'll be in an email that you receive tomorrow. Again, our website has all the recordings from the past 5 years. That's when this ends, that'll be 25-hour-long pollinator presentations that are tailored towards Northeast Ohio, but applicable across the United States. If you want to watch those, check them out. They are on the website. Before I get to the night speakers, I do want to make an announcement that this will be the last time you see me as the moderator and as the host for these pollinator symposiums. So we will have someone new next time. I made the decision to take a new role and with a different university over in Pennsylvania, and I'll be making that transition in the meantime. It's been a pleasure to share these webinars with you, um, to virtually meet some people from all across the United States. It's really been one of the um, proudest aspects of my work here at Ohio State Extension, and I really enjoy doing this. So, well wishes to all of you. I'll probably be in your seat for the next couple of weeks watching instead of hosting, but it's been a lot of fun, and have trust that the Pollinator Society is a strong organization. They're a great 501c3 now, and Ashley Colhanick in Medina County graciously offered to help moderate the Zoom webinars going forward. You're gonna love her. She's full of energy. So thank you all. Without further ado, we'll get to tonight's presentation, the benefits of on-farm pollinator habitat with Amber Barnes and Cody Wilson. We have two great speakers, both from the Pollinator Partnership. Amber is the program manager and Cody is the agricultural specialist. I will let them introduce themselves further so we can keep it moving, but that is, let me stop sharing my screen. That is all we have for housekeeping. I know I went a little long, but we'll turn it over to Amber and Cody. Thank you both for being here. Whenever you're ready.
All right. Well, hello and Happy New Year, everyone. The Pollinator Partnership, or P2 as we're often called, is thrilled to talk with you about the benefits of on-farm pollinator habitat in this winter webinar series, and would like to thank the Northeast Ohio Pollinator Society for including us in their fantastic lineup of 2024 speakers. And as as Andrew said, I am Amber Barnes, and I'm Conservation Program Manager for Pollinator Partnership. Combining my passion for plants and wildlife, I've gotten to help lead and coordinate research, volunteer efforts, and other habitat projects aimed at enhancing the landscape for imperiled pollinators and throughout the Midwest. For 6 years, I led a variety of projects that worked with volunteers and conservation partners to increase the supply of regionally appropriate native seeds for habitat projects. And then in 2020, the focus of my work began to shift, and now I lead a team of P2 partner biologists who, in collaboration with USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service, or NRCS, are providing outreach, education, and technical assistance to landowners and conservation professionals in order to help accelerate the adoption of pollinator and other voluntary wildlife conservation practices within working lands. So I'm based in the greater Cleveland area, and my Ohio staff are located near Bowling Green, Columbus, and Burling Center. And yeah, I'm joined today by Cody Wilson, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Thank you, Amber. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Cody Wilson. I'm an agricultural specialist with Pollinator Partnership. I help coordinate our bee-friendly farming program, which certifies and aids agricultural producers in efforts to install and maintain pollinator habitat in and around farmland. I have a master's in environmental management with an emphasis in ecology and a bachelor's degree in ecology and evolutionary biology with a concentration in entomology. With this, I focused my career at the interface of plant-insect interactions. I have served at county level Department of Agriculture as a program lead for agricultural pest detection and trapping programs. And I've also served on natural resource management restoration crews, leading and implementing integrated pest management in riparian and wetland habitats. And I currently work to merge these professions as I work with producers to create functional pollinator habitat while implementing effective pest management solutions in practice. After 5 years in the Pacific Northwest, I am now here in Frankfort, Kentucky.
All right. Thanks, Cody. And yeah, thank you so much, Andrew, for getting us started. So here's a roadmap for today's presentation. We're going to start off with a discussion of agricultural progression, the importance of pollinators to our food systems, the current state of pollinators, and what these pollinators require for population health. And after that, we'll talk about native habitat planning and installation. Then we'll review a few different types of habitat installations that are common in agricultural landscapes and the multiple benefits that they can provide. And then we'll wrap things up by sharing some additional resources that are available to help people actualize their pollinator habitat goals. So agriculture has changed dramatically over the years. Historic systems such as the Indigenous Three Sister implementation strategy focus highly on smaller fields with higher diversity while emphasizing a lesser quantity, yet higher variety of crops. And these typically produced less yield, however, required less input and maintained more non-cropped areas. In the last 100 years, there have been a historic boom in the agriculture industry, much propelled by the technological revolution and the need to be able to feed the ever-increasing global population. Emphasis transformed into much more industrialized systems, focusing on larger fields with less diversity, often resulting in monocropped landscapes with greater yields, higher inputs, and less preserved natural areas. And as you'll see, the hope is to find a compromise of the two systems. Intensified agriculture with increased diversification for the goal of sustainable production. And pollinators are tremendously important for our global economy, and research and economic studies have shown that historically, 84% of European crops depend on animal pollination. About $6.8 billion in production has been attributed to honeybees in the US, about $3.1 billion to native bees, and $217 billion in crop production results from insect pollination. But with the decrease in pollinators, we're likely to also experience economic decline. So US counties producing fruits and nuts are most vulnerable, followed by counties which specialize in melons and vegetables, and finally oilseed, specifically canola and soy. And our diets rely greatly on pollinators, with approximately 75% of global food crops dependent on pollinators. And nearly 1 out of 3 bites of food that we eat are attributed to pollinators' visit to a flower. And these declines in production are associated with pollinator decline. So let's take a deeper look at some Ohio crops and pollinators that are responsible for facilitating the production of some of these economically important and often delicious foods. So we'll start off with pumpkin and squash pollination. These crops are monoecious with imperfect flowers, and that means that there are separate male and female flowers found on the same plant. And because the male and the female reproductive parts are in different flowers, they require a mechanism to get pollen from the male flower to the female flower, meaning that these plants require pollinators. And in fact, a heavier fruit set is often associated with cross-pollination. So when pollen is transferred between 2 separate plants of the same species. And further proving these crops' dependence on pollinators is that pollen viability reduces with time. So for successful pollination, a female flower should be pollinated when they open early in the day. And these flowers close early on hot days. So early bee activity is especially important. So let's take a look at our early morning workhorses responsible for facilitating pumpkin and squash production. We have our honeybees, bumblebees, sweat bees, and squash bees. And squash bees are so specialized that they collect only pumpkin and squash pollen to feed their larvae. The eastern cucurbit bees are clearly are early birds, reaching peak numbers on crop flowers as soon as the flowers open in the dawn. And they complete crop pollination well before honeybees begin foraging on the crop in large numbers. And so these bees, the males will often sleep in the flowers, and you also find them mating in there. And the flowers will wilt, and that's where the males will bed down for the night. The female bees will often sleep in their nests in the ground, which are usually located close to the plants. And as a result, they can be negatively impacted by tillage practices and can benefit from farms that adopt no-till methods. And cucumbers are very similar to squash and pumpkins. And in fact, all three are in the plant family Cucurbidaceae. However, cucumbers can vary in reproductive strategy depending on their variety. So some cucumber varieties can produce fruits without the need for fertilization, yielding seedless cucumbers, but many varieties do require pollination in order to generate fruit. And these varieties can be monoecious, again, having those separate male and female flowers in the same individual, or gynoecious, producing predominantly female flowers with the intent of higher yield and abundance. And these female cucumber flowers require a high pollen set to produce marketable fruit, which often requires multiple visits from pollinators. And so several studies have concluded that have been conducted to examine the minimum number of visits to flowers for successful pollination. And this range was found to be between 6 to 18 visits. And so the moral of the story here is that many pollinators are needed for successful fruit production. And so who are the pollinators we have to thank for our cucumber fruit production? We have honeybees, bumblebees, flies, sweat bees, serentina bees, and many others. A 2013 study in Indiana found 28 different species of bees pollinating cucumbers. And research in Pennsylvania documented flies as a frequent cucumber flower visitor in their study plots. All right. And watermelon is another member of the Cucurbidaceae family. They are monoecious, and a few varieties will even bear perfect flowers, meaning both the male and female parts are found within the same flower. And however, this doesn't diminish the plant's need for pollinators. Each flower only lasts for a day, and the pollen is released before the flower opens, but stays on that sticky anther until it's removed by a pollinator. And the female stigma is most receptive to pollen earlier in the day, and by afternoon, the flowers have closed. So for this reason, morning pollination is very important. And even seedless watermelon plants require active pollination of their flowers in order to produce big, juicy fruit. Marketable watermelons may need over 1,000 grains of pollen for effective fertilization, which means a lot of flower visits. And who are the pollinators we have to thank for watermelon pollination? Our honeybees, bumblebees, sweat bees, and longhorn bees have been documented as frequent visitors. And tomato pollination is quite interesting. Tomatoes require what is known as buzz pollination. And in buzz pollination, the tomato flower requires a shake or a vibration in order to release that pollen. And the bee will fly to the tomato flower, holding onto the flowers seen in this image on the screen, and then buzz. And that spurs the pollen to release from the anthers and attach to the bee. And other crops that require buzz pollination are blueberries, kiwi fruit, and eggplant. And fruit set and seed numbers in tomatoes are found to be closely linked to visitation rates, so as high as up to 4 times. So heavier pollination results in larger, earlier fruits with more seeds. And our solitary bees and bumblebees are mainly to thank for tomato pollination. In fact, bumblebees are particularly efficient at buzz pollination. And the last Ohio crop highlight that we're going to discuss today is soybeans. Now, soy plants are monoecious, bearing perfect flowers that contain both that male and female parts. And these flowers are actually capable of self-pollination, a process where the flower's own pollen can fertilize its pistil and result in seed set without the need for animal visitation. However, the pollen and nectar produced by the flowers also attract pollinators, such as bees, which can result in cross-pollination and seed set. And not all varieties of soy are equally attractive to bees. A 2022 study conducted by researchers at The Ohio State University found that some varieties of soybeans generate more nectar than others, and this results in increased visitation rates among those varieties of soybeans. And during soy bloom, this abundance of pollen and nectar can be beneficial to visiting pollinators, including a diversity of native and managed bees, as you can see on the slide. And despite the ability of soy to self-pollinate, there's a growing body of evidence that shows that animal-mediated pollination of these flowers can lead to substantial increases in crop quality and quantity. So later in this talk, we'll dive a little bit deeper into this topic as we discuss the various benefits of that on-farm pollinator habitat can provide. So we've covered the economic importance of our pollinators and explored how they are often critical in the production of many of our favorite locally grown fruits and vegetables. But what's their current status? Well, about 28% of bumblebee species are in decline. 19% of U.S. butterflies are at risk for extinction. 50% of leafcutter bee species are at risk. 27% of mason bee species are at risk. And 27 species of non-native lady beetles threaten the health of our populations of native lady beetles. And that's just to name a few. So why are they declining? Well, as with most things, it's a complex soup of various stresses, including habitat loss. So areas formerly dominated by diverse flowering plants are now urban or suburban development or large fields of just one crop species. Invasive plants are also increasingly being introduced and displacing biodiverse native habitat. And parasites and diseases. So as with any living thing, our pollinators are going to have to fight off parasites and pathogens. And honeybees in particular have been subject to several diseases and parasites. And some of these diseases have also been found to transfer to other bees. And we also have other pollinators such as butterflies, moths, and beetles that are facing their own health problems. And pesticides, they can be a great tool, but as with any tool, it can be used incorrectly. And when we use them prophylactically or without regard to label instructions, it can cause problems as well. And climate change, it's creating a whole host of problems. With temperatures rising, weather patterns changing, bloom time shifting, and habitat becoming degraded, climate change is a major threat to both pollinators and the plants that rely upon them. And to help our managed and wild pollinating neighbors, it's critical to know what they need from the environment in order to survive and thrive. And there are a number of elements that are important in a healthy pollinator habitat. So regardless of whether you're creating pollinator habitat in a small yard or a multi-acre farm, you'll want to check as many of these boxes as you can to help promote pollinators in the area. So among the most important of these qualities is the presence of diverse native plants, including forbs, shrubs, grasses, and trees. Many pollinators have developed associations with specific native plant species. So including a variety of these species in a habitat is important for attracting an assortment of pollinators. Additional benefits to including native plants in your habitat areas is they're not only beautiful, but they're also very well adapted to local soil conditions, temperatures, and rainfall patterns, making them a low maintenance addition to the landscape. And different pollinators will forage at different times of the year. So ensuring that there are plants blooming throughout the entire growing season is important for providing food for migratory as well as mid, early, and late emerging pollinators. And because of variation in things like tongue length and dietary needs, different pollinators can specialize on specific plants and flowers. So including a diversity of flower sizes, shapes, colors, and heights in your landscaping ensures that everyone can find a meal. And host plants are also vital. The successful reproduction of butterflies and moths rely on the presence of their host plants in the landscape. So they will only lay their eggs on the plants where their caterpillars can thrive, like monarchs and milkweeds. So some species are generalists, while others have very specific needs. One powerhouse host plant is the oak tree. They are the host for several hundred different species of caterpillars. And connectivity helps individuals move from one area to another, as seen in this diagram. And that helps to promote a diverse gene pool for both the plants and the animals in that area, reducing the chances of inbreeding and its negative consequences. And while pollinators get everything they need from nectar and pollen, others, such as honeybees, require a source of clean water in order to thrive. And moist soil can also be an important habitat feature. Some butterflies need moist soil where they can source minerals, and several types of bees and wasps will gather mud to help build their nests. And pesticides can be bad for pollinators, so ensuring that they have areas free of these chemicals is crucial. This is true of both large habitat areas, but also smaller areas like front yard plantings and flower beds. And finally, pollinators need nesting and overwintering areas. It can be easy to overlook these kinds of habitats, but this can be in vegetation, plant stems, woody debris, leaf litter, below ground, or elsewhere. So by leaving some leaves, allowing bare patches of soil, providing woody debris, and not trimming back your garden or wildflower fields too early, you can make a really big difference for pollinators and other wildlife. All right, well, now I'm going to shake things up a bit and turn the microphone over to Cody, who's going to talk about habitat planning, types, and benefits.
Thanks, Amber. Now that we've discussed the importance of pollinators to our food systems, I'm going to review the process of establishing large-scale pollinator habitat. It's important to go about these steps in order to do so effectively and efficiently. For successful pollinator habitat, proper site evaluation must take place. Step 2 is, and I cannot emphasize this step enough, is site prep. Do not skip on your site preparation. Next is plant selection, followed by planting. And then the last step is to follow through with your habitat installation with proper maintenance. So what do we want to look for when we're evaluating a site for pollinator habitat? It's crucial to key into important environmental factors to set ourselves up for success. Potential pollinator habitat sites should be areas with reduced pesticide risk, accessible to any equipment needed for the site prep and installation, areas with windbreaks. Pollinators don't like strong winds. Decent sun and trying to avoid those high shady areas, and areas with healthy soils. These areas will be planted with flowering plants. The success of your habitat depends on the success of these plants. So soil evaluation to select the correct plants for your location is key. You want to make sure you have good site history characteristics, such as have pre-emergent herbicides been used on the site. Site-specific factors are pretty important for your evaluation. Is the potential site able to be irrigated? Plantings will inevitably do much better with the installation of irrigation and with consistent access to water sources. And then where is the potential habitat on site? Some locations will clearly not work for habitat, for example, dwellings, production areas, etc. And what locations are available? It's always better to work with what you have before starting over. And is there any pre-existing habitat on site? Like I said, work with what you have, and it can be added. Every site is different. As I alluded to before, site prep is incredibly important. Think of the saying, a stitch in time saves 9, except 9 is a complete understatement. Without proper site preparations, your soon-to-be new habitat doesn't stand a chance. It's incredibly important to start with as close to a blank slate as possible. We want to remove and eliminate the existing weeds as often, and often more importantly, reduce that weedy seed bank as well. This is the part that can make site prep so difficult. It's easy to eliminate the weeds we can see, but the next year they'll be right back. This is why it's essential to repeat vegetative management during the growing season and to do so for up to a couple years. Effective means for vegetative management include solarization, occultation, persistent manual labor, responsible herbicide use, plowing, disking, harrowing, smothering, and tilling. Here's what I consider to be one of the fun parts, the plant selection. When making your plant selection, it's important to consider the following: soil, moisture, sun, ecoregion, and season of bloom. We're lucky to have such great diversity of plant species to select from in this region. It's essential to carefully select the right plants species for your habitat. Pollinators need continuous bloom throughout the growing season, from spring through fall, as well as nutritional diversity during these seasons. We suggest a minimum of 9 species in your habitat to ensure seasonal and nutritional diversity. An example of 9 native pollinator powerhouse plants that can provide bloom throughout the season are shown on the slide. Ohio spiderwort, New Jersey tea, and penstemons make for great spring, summer blooms. Milkweeds, mountain mint, and echinacea make for great summer blooms. And asters, boneset, and goldenrods make for great summer fall blooms. At a glance, making species selections can appear overwhelming with all your considerations. That's why Pollinator Partnership has developed ecoregional guides and the Find Your Roots tool to make this step easier. These tools will help reduce the considerations by making this information readily available and attainable. I'm going to drop these resources in the chat so everybody has an opportunity to access them. Here's the ecoregional planting guides, as well as the Find Your Roots tool. All right, we've chosen an appropriate habitat location, removed the weed species and the weed seed bank, making our land workable. And we've selected our plant species for our habitat. Time to get our hands dirty. It's important to keep in mind that depending on the methods that you for establishing your habitat, there's an optimal time of the season for installment. For seeding, dormant seeding sometimes after the first killing frost is the general recommendation. Late October to late February is optimal. If the site is too wet to install the seed in the fall, and early spring seeding may be advisable between February and early April. Native plant installations. Plugs should be planted when there's no threat of frost and when climatic variables are ideal, meaning late spring through summer, early summer, and fall are great ideal times. Unless you'll be providing a lot of attention and irrigation, it's usually best to avoid planting in the hot and dry months of peak summer. And then when considering dormant bare root plantings, it's ideal to plant April through May or in October as well. All right, congratulations, you've installed your habitat. However, you're not done. You've come this far. Now let's keep up with the upkeep. Your plants will need water throughout the growing season. It's pretty crucial, and when possible, make sure to establish and turn on your irrigation system. You put a lot of work reducing and eliminating weed populations, but this is almost never perfect. So you have to keep up with that weed management. You've also invested a lot of money into your new plants, so protect them. They're susceptible to pest pressures from deer, rodent, and other predators. Make sure your new plantings are safe from herbicide drift. Remember, this is pollinator habitat. Pollinators need areas free from pesticides. More often than not, you'll find some casualties amongst your new plantings. This is normal. Replace these plants when possible. Despite your efforts or your best efforts, it's common for some unwanted vegetation to persist in the site. Establishment mowing can help your new plants overcome that pressure. In year 1, P2 recommends mowing to a height of 6 to 8 inches when vegetation reaches 10 to 12 inches high, and then mow at a height of 12 to 18 inches in year 2. Repeating as many times as necessary when weeds are flowering and before they set seed. As your habitat becomes established, occasional mowing and prescribed burns can also be used to manage the site. For larger sites, it's best to plan this out on a 3-year cycle. mowing or burning 1/3 of the area each year, and spot treat for invasive species and woody encroachment across the entire site as needed. Now that we've provided a general overview of habitat planning, installment, and establishment, let's take a look at a few of the different types of habitat that have proven to be well integrated into working lands and can help us move forward toward a goal of sustainable agriculture. These are different approaches to creating habitat and are often referred to as conservation practices. And there are many different methods for increasing habitat for pollinators and wildlife onto farms, including hedgerows, flower strips, cover crops, beetle banking, pivot corners, intercropping, land margins, prairie strips, and grass banking, just for example. We could have a full conversation on any of these practices, especially cover crops, but in this part of today's talk, we'll be highlighting a few that have proven highly effective and specific in detail, and specify in detail how these types of plantings benefit both the ecosystem and the farmer. Namely, the methods we'll be discussing will be flower strips, hedgerows, and prairie strips. So let's take a look at flower strips. A great way to increase bloom time within the agricultural system is via flower strips. Flower strips can be implemented in a row cropping system with ease, and they can have dual benefits. Albrecht et al. Found that not only can flower strips enhance and preserve natural enemies to crop pests in adjacent fields by 16%, but also that pollination services were greatly affected as well. Another method for increasing pollinator habitat in farms is via hedgerow installation. Hedgerows are systems of bordering shrubs or hedges, typically along in agricultural fields. While studying the beneficial properties of hedgerows, Mirandin and Kremen found that field edges restored with native perennial plants in agriculture areas, A, increase floral abundance, B, increase potential bee nesting sites, C, increase the native bee and syrphid fly abundance and species richness and diversity, as well as D, increased support for less common native bee species. They also found that these hedgerows didn't concentrate pollinators, meaning that they did not detract these pollinators from the crops, but rather acted as a habitat corridor, providing pollination services to adjacent fields and crops as well. But to further promote the benefits of hedgerows in an agricultural setting, McGonigal et al. Found that hedgerows benefit pollinator persistence and colonization between seasons, and that this leads to even more species-rich communities. They also found hedgerow systems benefit pollinator specialists more than generalists, which has big implications for conservation purposes within an agricultural setting. So let's take a look at a comprehensive study that covers many of the environmental quality features that we address, that we'll address while addressing one more implementation strategy. Prairie strips are a prime example of successful habitat implementation that can have dramatic soil and water quality implications, especially within row cropping systems. As shown in 2017 by Grundenschuk et al., prairie strips installations result in 44% reduction in water runoff, 95% reduction in soil loss, a 90% reduction in phosphorus runoff, and an 84% reduction in nitrogen runoff. Implementation has also had no change in acre corn and soybean yields, and had no increase in weed abundance, and it also reduced emissions of heat-trapping gases such as nitrous oxide. Pretty profound and dynamic effects. Now, some of the effects of pollinator habitat installations can be obvious, but some may not be so much. The next segment of this talk will focus on 4 major benefits that could be gained through the inclusion of pollinator habitat onto our working and residential landscapes, including boosts in biodiversity, native pest control, productivity and sustainability, and soil and water health. So let's jump right into the first benefit, biodiversity. So what is biodiversity? Biodiversity was originally denoted in 1986 as shorthand for biological diversity. Diversity as the measure of range and distribution of features within a system. Very simplistically, biological variance. It's a characteristic that cascades through the trophic levels. And what does this mean? It means with the greater diversity of plants, there's an associated greater diversity within the community with which these plants support, the herbivores, the predators, the parasitoids, so on and so forth, because there's a greater range of natural resources provided within the environment. When we look at native biodiversity, we find there's a greater diversity of native fauna where there is a greater diversity of native flora. This is largely because native plants have co-evolved with native fauna and provide familiar and diverse resources such as food and shelter. Native diversity can also provide habitat corridors, as we previously discussed, for enhanced beta diversity, allowing wildlife to move freely between ecoscapes. So why native? To put it simply, pollinators and flowering plants have co-evolved together. There's a familiarity between these two through millions of years of species development. Not only have pollinators become familiar and dependent on the native plants in this landscape, but the plants have also developed a dependence on the pollinators as well, hence the coevolution. So much so that native plants host more specialized plant bee visitation networks than non-native plants. A very common example of insect dependence on native plant species, which we mentioned briefly earlier, is the monarch butterfly. Monarch caterpillars feed only on the leaves of milkweed. And in recent years, the availability of milkweed has declined. And as a partial result of this and other stressors, there's been a great decline in the monarch populations. But not only is there a close codependence on native resources, but a dependence on diversity as well. Diverse habitats work in confluence to create a network of nutritional resources and often compensate for losses in individual forage plants. Bees need a diversity of resources. Both pollen and nectar provide populations with the carbohydrates, the proteins, the lipids, and the micronutrients they need to survive. Not only are these nutrients important for individual health, but these nutrients also have impacts on bee foraging behaviors and the bee's ability to respond to stressors. Carrots, for example, are a healthy part of a human diet. However, we can't just eat carrots. We need a wide variety of food to maintain a healthy and nourished body. Bees and their dietary needs work very similarly. Native habitat doesn't only benefit pollinator diversity, though. It also aids in natural pest control and natural enemy diversity. An increase in diversity has cascading effects into the higher trophic levels. What this means is with an increased biodiversity, there's often an increase in natural enemies. Here are just a handful of native beneficial insects you might find in your area: lady beetles, soldier beetles, predatory murids, crabs, spiders, syrphids, minute pirate bugs, lacewings, just to name a few. All species that aid in natural pest control and are benefited by an increased native habitat. But how? What does native habitat offer that these predators and parasitoids need? Just like pollinators, these habitats resources include nesting grounds, means for forage, and shelter. By working with the environmental system around you rather than against it, natural pest control is a tool that can be utilized and enhance both farm and home garden sustainability. A fantastic example of a natural enemy that is different habitat and forage needs throughout its life stages and provides several important services to its ecosystem is the syrphid fly. As a larva, they're beneficial predators feeding on detrimental pests such as aphids. Michigan State Extension gives us this great statistic that a single syrphid larva can eat up to 400 aphids. That's a ratio of 400 to 1. As adults, however, syrphids act as a valuable pollinator, and they feed on the nectar and pollen of flowers, a completely different subset of resources required by these predators. Another example of common beneficial is the green lacewing. As a larva, these active predators feed on soft-bodied insects such as aphids again, as seen in the center photo where the green lacewing larva is feeding on the brown ambrosia aphids. In fact, predators are so active, adults have evolved to produce each individual egg on long filament-like stalks, as seen on the left-hand image there, to avoid potential of these larvae eating each other as they hatch. Larvae whereas the larvae are intense predators, adult green lacewing feed on nectar and pollen and sugary aphid excrement. Quite the contrast across their life stages. So let's take a look at the common pests of the crops we're discussing. It's important to also keep in mind that these pests and associated natural enemies are regarded as they can be found in your larger agricultural lands as well as your home gardens and anywhere in between. So we have the cucumber beetle, aphids, two-spotted spider mite, hornworms, thrips, whiteflies, flea beetles, Colorado potato beetle, the squash bug, squash vine borer. Seems like a pretty high diversity. Fielder and Landis took a look at examining the growing focus on natural enemies use in flowering plants for pollen and nectar provisions, as we saw in the surfer flies and the green lacewings. In doing so, they found that the common exotics were more attractive in year 1 when compared to native perennials in focus. However, by year 2, native perennials became more established and had become much more attractive to natural enemies than the exotics. Not only does this study indicate that natural enemy preference, but shows that the potential for specific plant species to attract natural enemies of agricultural pests without providing resources to the crop pests themselves. And again, Fielder and Landis conducted another study revolving around similar focus. However, this time emphasizing that floral factors of attraction to the natural enemies. They found that plants with the largest floral area to be more attractive to natural enemies, and that natural enemy numbers seem to respond with peak bloom and floral area across the plants tested. Simply, more natural enemies were found where and when more flowers were in bloom. A great takeaway: extending your bloom time with an increased native plant diversity will benefit natural enemy preference and abundances. And with careful planning and with a careful planned out strategy, increased plant diversity can increase bloom time. So let's take a look at benefits in terms of productivity and sustainability. Specifically, we'll look at how native habitat supports pollinator sustainability, crop yield, economic growth, and soil and water health. We spent a lot of time discussing the means to increase pollinator services, but let's take a look at how these services benefit growers. Roca and Freitas found the presence of wild pollinators can boost soybean yields greater than 6% and 18% when in the presence of Apis mellifera, or honeybees. Bletter et al. Found that bees can increase soybean yields by up to 18%. And there have been numerous studies showing that the positive effects bee populations can have on self-pollinating crops. In this review by Escobar et al., studies show that there can be a potential 15% increase in cotton yields, 12 to 15% increase in canola yields, and numerous other potential yield increases to non-pollinator dependent crops when aided by native bees and honeybees. In the study conducted by Riley et al. 2020, 5 out of 7 crops studied showed pollinator dependent limitations. This isn't just crops that are pollinator dependent, but crops that experience yield boosts in the presence of pollinators. With a lack of pollinators, we jeopardize $1.5 billion in production of wild bee pollination across pollinated crops across this study group. And this value is expected to be much greater outside the sample size of these 7 crops. So let's change direction a little bit and explore the effects of native pollinator habitat implementation can have on environmental factors such as soil and water health. Native habitat has shown to support bank stabilization, water retention, water quality, and soil health. It's also shown to impact a reduction in erosion and soil loss and water usage. Let's take a little closer look at how native habitat provides these services. So vegetation is the most effective and economical means for bank stabilization and preventing wind and water erosion. It also has proven as an effective measure for preventing unwanted sediment transport. Native plants develop deep fibrous roots that hold soil in place. These roots greatly benefit bank stabilization, erosion control, and prevent soil loss by anchoring soil. Be sure to note the graphic demonstrating the contrast in rooting depths between many of our native and turf grasses, for example. Pretty substantial differentiation. Let's take a look at a study in 2010 in Nebraska. Pratchell helps show the positive impacts bank stabilization can have on an entire stream system in the Great Plains. When compared to unstabilized sites, stabilized sites experience less stream bank erosion, increased nutrient and suspended sediment concentrations downstream, increased riparian microphyte diversity and density, increased macroinvertebrate family and species abundance, and increased fish and native fish species abundance, and overall enrichment to natural systems, all as a result of bank stabilization. Another increasingly important attribute in terms of water and soil health is water retention. The deep fibrous roots systems of much of the native plant diversity increases the soil's organic matter and its capacity to retain and store water. Native plants can significantly reduce water runoff and as a result reduce flooding, allowing for a resumption of natural water table. Additionally, mechanisms for vegetative reduction of stormwater runoff can be attributed to the basic and physical characteristics of the plant matter. Interception of rain held on the leaves and bark, for example, a portion of this water will be evaporated, and while the remainder will be gradually fall into the soil below. Fallen leaves help form a mulching layer and humus layer that moderates soil temperatures, assists with soil moisture retention, and holds organic organisms that break down in organic matter. This allows for rainwater to percolate into the soil rather than creating runoff with oil, metal particles, and other pollutants. And roots will absorb the water in the soil later to be released via transpiration. By breaking up soils like the compact clay that we experience in parts of Ohio and allowing moisture to percolate deeper into the soil, they increase the soil's retention capacity in a way that benefit crops. In areas stricken by drought, there's an associated decrease in water input requirements, decreasing grower expenditure needs. As shown by the CDFA, healthy soils can naturally increase water infiltration and can hold up to 20 times its weight in water. But what about natural waterways and general water quality? Native plants are more naturalized to native soils and grow effectively and can be low maintenance once established. As a result, they generally require less inputs, for example, water, as we discussed, and fertilizers, and they are naturally adapted to local conditions. Less fertilizer, lime, etc., lends towards less runoff potential, and less runoff into waterways results in less algal growth, as these products promote algal blooms. Algal growth depletes oxygen in the water and waterways, resulting in a detriment to aquatic life and water quality. Native plants have also shown that to have a great resistance and resilience to native pathogens, disease, pests, etc. Whereas this is part due to the presence of natural enemies, and as previously discussed, it's also as a result of years of coevolution with spatial proximity and familiarity to the native soils. As native plants have a greater resistance and resilience to native pathogens, their diseases and pests, these installations decrease the quantity of pesticides required. And with the decrease, there's an inherent decrease of runoff and drift potential, thus reducing the potential harm to our waterways and native wildlife. So our final benefit to address here is soil health. Soil health is a crucial environmental feature that is directly impacted by the plant community which it supports. As shown in many studies, including Tiemann et al., plant diversity has dramatic impacts on soil. In fact, increased plant diversity improves microbial biodiversity, and in turn, these microbial interactions improve plant fitness and soil quality, as found in Brea et al. Ferris and Tuomisto show us that that increased soil diversity can increases soil health services and magnitudes such as soil cycling. And Hobby teaches us that that plant composition has direct effects on soil fertility and nutrient cycling. A full spectrum of soil nutrients cycle services catered by just increasing plant diversity. All right, and I'll pass back over to Amber.
All right. Thanks, Cody. So now that you know a bit more about the importance of pollinators and how they and the habitats that support them can provide a multitude of benefits to both our ecosystems as well as our hobby and production agriculture, you might be wondering, well, how can I help? Well, we all have the power to make decisions that can help pollinators. It's really up to you what you want to do with your piece of the puzzle. So getting people involved and educated in what they as an individual, community, or organization can do is one way to support these wonderful pollinating heroes and heroines of our landscapes. And that's why P2 founded Pollinator Week 17 years ago, which has transformed from a national effort into an international celebration. On Pollinator Partnership's website, there's a map where you can find activities, lightings, and other resources. And if you're having an event, you can also get it posted on there so that you can let the world know what you're doing to celebrate and get more people to your event. It's always the third week in June, and this year it will be June 17th to 23rd. In each year, we also provide a pollinator toolkit that you can download for free, and you can share your love for pollinators far and wide by using hashtag Pollinator Week in social media posts and wherever else you use your hashtags. And use areas for pollinators to nest, breed, and forage is also critical to protecting pollinators, as we've talked about. More than 85% of US households have an outdoor living space. So together we can have a big impact. Your space can provide support to pollinators and other wildlife. No farm, lawn, garden, balcony, or window box is too small. And as noted earlier in this talk, P2 has created a number of guides in order to help make this as easy as possible. And while P2 is a nationwide nonprofit, we also have some Ohio-specific resources that can help you plan, install, maintain, and interpret your own habitat through our Monarch Wings Across Ohio project. So you can support monarch programming in Ohio through a specialty license plate, as seen on this slide. And to learn more about this project and access the free guides, you can visit on the website on the screen, and then we'll also make sure to share that in the chat as well. And the Monarch Wings Across Ohio research and these resulting guides wouldn't have been possible without the generous support of the Kelvin and Eleanor Smith Foundation and the J.M. Smucker Company. And there's also many local, state, and federal programs that are available to help landowners and producers meet their goals. So one example, which I'll briefly talk about, is the Farm Bill's conservation programs, which are managed by the Natural Resources Conservation Service, or NRCS, and the Farm Service Agency, or FSA, which are both agencies within the United States Department of Agriculture, or USDA. So many acronyms. And through the Farm Bill, agricultural landowners and producers can seek technical and cost share assistance in order to help them plan and implement conservation practices on their lands. And there are several programs available throughout the Farm Bill that provide technical and financial assistance for a wide variety of conservation practices. So as mentioned earlier in this talk, conservation practices that benefit pollinators and other wildlife can include prairie, grass, and flower plantings, tree and shrub plantings, riparian buffers, hedgerow plantings, nest boxes for birds, conservation cover for erosion control, and a whole lot more. And the Farm Bill is designed to help folks plan and implement these practices on their lands. And so the program that's most utilized in Ohio is the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, or EQIP. And EQIP provides cost share reimbursement payments to landowners. EQIP applicants are ranked in order to determine funding, and applicants are encouraged to implement multiple conservation practices throughout their farm. Another frequently utilized program is the Conservation Stewardship Program, or CSP. And CSP contracts are usually utilized after a landowner has completed an EQIP application and wants to implement additional conservation practices on their property. CSP contracts are usually about 5 years and provide an annual payment to the landowner for the implementation and maintenance of the practice for the length of the contract. And the Conservation Reserve Program, or CRP, is another farm bill program that is often utilized in Ohio. And the main goal of CRP is to take marginal or sensitive cropland out of production and install permanent cover in those areas. And CRP contracts are longer in length, up to 10 to 15 years. CRP provides an annual rental payment to landowners for the length of the contract. And some CRP practices also provide cost share reimbursement payments for the implementation of the conservation practice at the beginning of the contract. And I know I kept saying in Ohio, and we have a lot of people from outside of Ohio tuning in today. These are available in other states as well. And so, if you are new to farm bill programs and know that you want to create pollinator habitat on your property, you can contact one of P2's partner biologists for assistance. So Pollinator Partnership has partner biologists that can assist you with site visits, seed mixes, conservation plans, and EQIP, CSP, or CRP applications, all free of charge. Our partner biologists can also provide site checks throughout the site preparation and seeding process. And these biologists work closely with the NRCS to ensure that the planned habitats meet eligibility requirements and provide the benefits to as many wildlife species as possible. You'll see I've starred our Ohio reps on this slide, which would be Sophia Sorborough and Isabel Nazarian. But if you are tuning in from anywhere in the Northeast, we also have Lacey Smith, or from somewhere out west, we've got Sarah Gardner, which you can see on this slide. And they will be happy to get that conversation started with you and see what kind of support we may be able to provide.
All right, and then just a few more ways in which you can help pollinators and get involved. Another way to support the pollinator conservation effort is to join a bee-friendly gardening program. This program helps people play a bigger role in the health and pollinators and the planet. Because not everyone has the ability to plant habitat, people can join the BFG community as a member regardless of whether or not they have a garden. And those that do are encouraged to register their bee-friendly garden to visualize the collective impact that all of our gardens are having on their landscape. To register a bee-friendly garden, a garden as bee-friendly garden, you need to plant nectar and pollen providing plants that bloom throughout the season, especially in early spring and late autumn. We provide resources to help you with this. These can be native plants supporting your ecosystems, as well as a non-invasive introduced species. You also need to provide nesting sites via permanent plantings and by leaving dead stems, bare ground, and trees, tree stumps and snags, or other offerings of bee houses. You need to have an attempt to reduce and eliminate the use of pesticides and eliminate pesticides that are harmful to pollinators. Use your integrated pest management, or IPM. And then, of course, submit an application at www.pollinator.org/BFG. For agricultural producers, Pollinator Partnership is proud to offer bee-friendly farming certification, a program that works with farmers to help protect, preserve, and promote pollinator health in and around agricultural land. Through bee-friendly farming program, more than 373,000 acres of farmland has been certified, and these farms manage over 88,000 acres of pollinator habitat. Our requirements for certification are attainable, yet strictly based on pollinator or the principles we covered earlier in this presentation regarding what is required for healthy pollinator habitat. You need to offer forage providing good nutrition for bees on at least 3% of land, forage can be temporary, including cover crops. You need to provide bloom for different flowering species throughout the growing season, especially in early spring and late autumn. There's no minimum for land coverage for seasonal bloom. You need to offer clean drinking water for bees, if not inhibited by government mandated water restrictions. You need to provide permanent habitat for nesting bees through features such as hedgerows, natural brush, buffer and strips, or bare ground. And you need to practice integrated pest management, again, IPM, reducing or eliminating the use of chemicals. And introducing our, also want to introduce our pollinator stewardship program. Whereas bee-friendly farming can be viewed as a certification for the farm with logo use and benefits for marketing, etc. Or pollinator stewardship certification, or PSC, is a certification program for the individual. This course is ideal for home gardeners, land managers, large or small, farmers, and anyone that wants to do more to support the pollinators. Join our growing community of certified pollinator stewards. So we'll conclude our talk with this wonderful poster art showing a multitude of pollinators and the wide range of ecosystem services that they provide. As it says, our future truly does fly with pollinators. And in all, we hope everyone is able to gain something from this presentation, whether it's from a grower perspective or conservation point of view. Together we can enhance and reconnect the fragments of landscape and help drive large-scale change through education, habitat, and our cumulative actions. Thank you for your time. It's truly appreciated. And now we'd like to take this opportunity to field any questions that you may have. And then just to add in, here are a few links and contact information for many of the people and programs that we've talked about today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Cody and Amber. That was wonderful. A lot of great resources shared today. And I think this is exactly the resource that people that attend these webinars need. So check out the Pollinator Partnership and all the great resources shared today. We will take a few minutes now to answer some of your questions. Cody and Amber, I'll let you field them out of the Q&A session. If anyone does have questions, go ahead and stick them in the Q&A chat box, and we'll try and get them answered. And thank you, everybody, for the well wishes, and for Cody and Amber. Make sure you see everybody thanking you for your presentation. We appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Andrew. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in. So yeah, it looks like we've got time for a few questions. Cody, I'll turn this one over to you. Are there any minimum acreage for these programs? Now, in terms, well, I guess I should say for the Farm Bill programs, I do believe there is some minimum acreage. Our partner biologists will be able to answer those questions better for you. So with those emails on this slide, they can get back to you with that. But Cody, in terms of bee-friendly farming, in case that's what they were asking for, I'll let you answer that one.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the bee-friendly farming program, there is a minimum requirement. It's not necessarily in acreage, but in percentage acreage. So quick and easy example, if you have say 100 acres in crop production, 3 acres need to be dedicated to forage. So 3% is what the studies have showed, where you really get that real peak of incline of pollinator benefit.
Thanks, Cody. And someone asked if a list of these resources will be sent in the email. I know, Andrew, you said that some of these would go get posted online. Will they also be in email?
Yeah, we'll try and get these posted onto our go.osu.edu NEOPS website. So that'll be the best way to do it. So many people join the webinar, and there's so many people that would probably like the resources. The easiest way is just put it on the website. So if you're interested in looking for these resources, and you didn't get a chance to catch them tonight, check out our website.
Thanks, Andrew. All right. And someone asked if they plant wildflower seeds between their common milkweed plants, would help increase pollination? And I would say, yeah, absolutely. And the if having milkweed is great for monarchs, but having a diverse resource of pollen and nectar resources can be really helpful. Having spring blooming flowers as well as fall can be really important for supporting that monarch migration, because as they are coming up in the late spring, early summer, they're flying across, coming up from Mexico, and really are in need of those nectar resources in order to support their ability to create those eggs and lay them. And then again in the fall, having those nectar resources is really important for fueling that migration back down into Mexico and getting those fat bodies so that they can overwinter. And so having that year-round bloom for not only the monarchs, but then the other things, the other resident pollinators that call home, is important for having a good habitat for all of our different species. And for those that get really frustrated when those aphids are on their milkweeds, again, as Cody kind of talked about, some of those natural enemies, like, yes, they'll probably eat some of the monarchs, but that's kind of the way it goes. That's why they lay so many eggs. But they can help to maintain the health of that patch, and then also provide those benefits to maybe your vegetable garden that's nearby. And monarchs often, they don't necessarily go into their chrysalis on the milkweed plant. They will scurry away and try and find something else because that's a really vulnerable time for them. So again, filling in kind of those spaces between the milkweeds with other species can be really helpful for that, because it can give them some nice cover and allow them some safety as they're transforming into that wonderful adult. So hopefully that helped answer that question. Let's see.
We have time for one more.
And also,
Cody,
just to extend, if after this one more, feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to answer any questions that are lingering.
Great. And Cody, were there any particular questions in here that you felt particularly interested in answering?
Sure, I'll just take the top one on the list here. What constitutes a beetle bank? Typically, beetle bank is a strip, preferably raised with plantings of grasses, often bunch grasses, and other perennial plants. As we advocated for in this, making sure that you have a good mix of those perennial plants so that they're flowering and offering some good nutrition to the pollinators. It's usually within a crop field or crop edges, and it fosters a lot of really good opportunity for beneficial insects, especially the beetles that it mentions. So that way it offers those beneficial services into the cropped area.
Fantastic. Well, there's lots of people thanking you both in the chat, and I'd like to thank you both for all the great information. Before we finish off tonight, everybody, thank you again for supporting this. If it's your first time, thank you for joining us, and we have 4 more of these fantastic presentations. Look at the website for the list of all the upcoming ones. There's a lot of good information coming out, and if you can't catch it live, they will be recorded on our website, along with all the information. So check it out. You can also follow us on the Facebook page. We have a new Northeast Ohio Pollinator Society Facebook page. I shared it in the chat box earlier and just now again. And got a lot of cool stuff planned. We're doing a community read for Ashtabula County. We're reading Doug Talamay's new book. So get in on that, and there'll be a chance to maybe get some pollinator plants to plant at your own house if you're an Ashtabula County resident. So check that out. Lots of cool stuff in the works, and that group is in great hands. I was just fortunate enough to help host some of these webinars, but let's thank both Cody and Amber again for their time, and thank you all for joining us. And we'll end it there, and we'll give everyone a chance to write their final words in the chat. But that'll be it for tonight. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you. And best of luck, Andrew.
Thanks. Alrighty. Thank you. Thank you. We'll end it here. Stop recording.